Welcome to the Focus Professional Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Lenton, and this is episode 28. Welcome to the Focus Professional Podcast. Today's guest is a portrait and fine art photographer, a Nikon creator, an ambassador for Elinchrom and Canson, Swedish champion in multiple genres and winner of various Photographer of the Year titles. It's Therese Asplund. Hello, Therese.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's lovely to have a chance to talk to you. You've had some incredible achievements in recent years. I remember one of your prints getting 100 at the Society's convention.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
I mean, amazing. It was the first time I entered the competition, so I wasn't really sure how things worked. And even, only that it was a print competition, and I kind of love print. So I've been glancing towards this competition for years, but now since I did judge the Swedish championship and couldn't enter that, I thought, well, let's give that a try. But then I sent in the prints and then I decided to not go there because I kind of needed to save money, COVID and economic crisis and stuff like that. So
yeah,
actually here in Sweden. And it was my friend Martina who just called me up and she said, Therese, I think you need to get your ass on a plane and come over here. But then I couldn't really grasp it until I got there and everyone was like, it was a really big fuss about it. And because apparently this was only the third image ever who got perfect 100. So I'm happy I went there because I could then enjoy a moment that will probably never happen again in my life. So it was amazing.
Well, you did get quite close with another one though, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Actually, in the same category, I got a 99. It turned out so. But I don't think that will ever happen again either. I had it was a good year, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. Would you say that's one of your sort of proudest achievements, or is there something else in your photography achievements that you remember even more fondly?
Oh, I think that it's hard to top this. It might be on this year's Icon Award in Las Vegas. There is a certain prize especially for how you handle light. It's called the Illuminance Award. I glanced at and thought that, oh my God, the people who win this, they must be over the moon. And then I did this year. So
well, yeah.
That's also one thing. But I think that I think that's competition wise. It's the things that I'm most proud about. But photography wise, I think that maybe being named the global one of only 2 global ambassadors for Elinchrom is what I consider to be one of the biggest achievements, because it's so much going into that. And since lighting has always been my passion and what I've been working really hard to get to where I want to be, to get this confirmation is, it's a huge thing. For me it is. From a lady from little Sweden and got appointed to do that. I think that made me really, really proud.
So did they approach you at some point? Did they come to you and ask you to be the ambassador? How did that happen?
Well, actually, I think it kind of happened gradually, really, because I've always been working with Elinchrom since I started out as an amateur photographer, having a studio in my basement, I don't know, something 30 years ago. I've always worked with Elinchrom. So as I went into professional photography, I kind of stayed in that lane, and I always liked their gear. So when they saw what I did with their lights, first here in Sweden, the distributors here in Sweden, IFO picked it up, and I became
Mhm.
working doing like content for them. And then Elinchrom in Switzerland picked that up, and I became like an local ambassador first,
Mhm.
and then we just carried on the partnership. So
Mm.
I mean, it's so I think that it's why I think it's such a nice thing to be appointed an ambassador is because then it's not only do they like what you do, the images, but also how you maybe share what you know,
Mm.
and like giving it forward to like the next generation or to others who want
Mm.
to learn, which is also like a big thing if you want to be an ambassador. I know that is also something that I'm very passionate about. So I think
Mm.
that was
Yeah.
also something that they read into it.
Yeah, they want someone who's going to inspire photographers to want to produce these kind of results for themselves. Yeah. So, do you have to produce a lot of content, a lot of images, especially for them, or do they take images from your sort of day-to-day work or your competition work and use that to promote the lights?
I think it's mostly the later.
Hmm.
I already did so much for my own brand, and for because I also have like a workshop concept, which is why I also want my social media to be like really sharing and inviting others to go out there and try what I do for themselves to like boost their creativity and see that it's not impossible to learn or to do it. So I wouldn't say that I do especially things for any of my ambassadorships that I wouldn't do otherwise. So it just happens to like feed my interests and align with their interests. So
Oh, that's helpful.
yeah.
So, I mean, you say on your website that your passion is lighting, but you truly believe it's when you master the shadows the magic happens.
Yeah.
Could you explain a little bit what you mean by that?
Yeah, I think it's when I mean, I don't have like photography school background. So I'm not self-taught. I wouldn't say that because I've been learning from other photographers, and I've taken classes here and there, and but mostly it's like me trial and error, putting the hours in and trying and trying. And my experience is that from the beginning, when I try to learn lighting, I focus very much on to like where to put the light. But when I realized that, especially when it comes to portrait photography, where you decide to put your shadows is way more important, because I mean it's
Mm.
the shadows in the face that really sculpture and bring out the features of the people that you want to portray. So
Hmm.
I think that is what I mean by that, because a lot of people, they don't pay as much attention to the shadows as they do the highlights. So,
Mm.
yeah, yeah, so that's what I that's what I mean by that.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I suppose when I've done product photography, I've tended to prefer the stuff that's lit more from an angle rather than the very evenly lit stuff. You know, we often get asked to do the pack shots, which are just on a white background and everything's looks very flat. You know, and for me, shadows means drama, which means interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and where the magic happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, and you know, if you make the most of the different shapes that people's faces have that way, don't
Yeah.
you? If you rather than just making everything look pretty flat, you can actually bring out the character a bit more. So does that mean you work with multiple lights normally?
No, I mean, I do from time to time, but if you like go through my work, I say that more than half of what you see is one light. but it's
Mm-hmm.
one light and a screen, because the reflective screen is what I use to control the shadows. And I mean, you can do surprisingly much with just one light and a softbox, and you can do so many variations and give so many different characters to the portrait. And that is also like my advice to my students, that start out with one light and make sure that you can master that, and then you can add things to build on it. But to like concentrate on one light, which I see often like brings down the stress level when something is new and you feel like it's a little bit complicated. It's a lot less stressful if you have like just one light. And so I think that's also what I want to show, that you can do like amazing light setups with just one light.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important, because often people, when they're starting out, they might see some of the sort of fashion setups where there are 2 or 3 lights going on, or some product photography ones where you might have 5 or 6 lights going on occasionally in some of these kind of things. And they think, oh, I can't afford to buy all these lights. And you think, well, just step back, just take one, just get used to what you can do with one, because until you really understand what one light is doing, there's no point in putting more in there.
No, absolutely. And to like really get the understanding for how much a light will change if you just shift it from here to here, or from here to here, or from here to here. So the position is far more important than like adding lots of different light sources.
Oh, small movements can make a surprisingly big difference. Yeah, it's just a few centimeters forwards, backwards, sideways, whatever it is, and yeah, it can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
You see sometimes people who've got them sort of almost mark on the studio floor with an X and just stick the stand there and it never moves.
No.
You think, no, don't do that.
No. Work with it all the time.
Yeah. There's so many creative possibilities just with the one light.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Experiment. Yeah, definitely. Do you have favorite types of moods then to create? I mean, if you like shadows, are you somebody who likes a more moody, sort of darker image, or do you enjoy all the different styles?
I would say the later. One thing that I did struggle with in the beginning, when you were like going on Instagram and showing your work, was that my work was not very cohesive. I'm like, I think it is because I'm a very like curious person. I get bored very easily, and I like to try different things and to like challenge myself with doing things that are not my style, if there is anything that is, but also because that's what you need to do to like learn. Because if you only do like one type of image, you can master that, and some say that that's the way to do it, and I wouldn't disagree, because obviously that's easier, and I think it's different from person to person. But in my case, what I need to keep being motivated and to keep loving this is the challenge, and I get that from doing a lot of different things. So I, even though my work is very like here and there and everywhere, I often hear that people say that you can see right away that it's a Therese image. So I guess I'm still doing something that is my type of image. And I guess that could be like coming down to the lighting, that I like my light in a certain way, but I don't have a specific style, and I like to like do a lot of different things.
So how did that affect you when you were starting up your business? Because often people say you've got to do something that's quite recognizable, that is clearly your style, and that if some people are coming to you, they know what they're getting. How did that affect you with your business, this desire to do lots of different things?
Well, I think that I consider my work to be like different parts. So my business is basically like the portrait studio and the commercial photography.
Mm.
And then, I mean, also now I'd say the last 5 or 6 years, I also do a lot of like creative portraits for clients. But to begin with, that was something that I did for my own projects and for competitions and for just to keep myself motivated and to learn, most of all, to learn new things. So I guess the professional part or the commercial part of my business was not as crazy as the others. So I think that if you go to the portrait studio website and Instagram, you will see that maybe there you can see more of what my portrait studio style is like. But even there, I think nowadays you need to like evolve and be creative and come up with new stuff to keep being interesting to your clients. But then I as you say, I'm very much more stick to one style when it comes to that. But then as opposed to that, I mean, the commercial part where I do commercial clients, businesses and stuff like that, there it very little comes down to what my style is, because then it's often my ability to adapt to their photo brief or their strategy when it comes to visual marketing. So, which I also think is really fun to come in with this has nothing to do with what I like and how I would do it, but this comes down to my ability to step into their vision and do images that supports that. So it's two different things. The portrait studio clients come to me because they like what I do, and the others come to me because I can do what they like, pretty much.
So is it almost like one is more of a creative challenge, the other's more of a technical challenge because you've got a brief that you have to meet?
Yeah, absolutely. I would absolutely say that.
Yeah. So you naturally, do you enjoy the creative more, or do you enjoy the technical challenges just as much? Do you find that creative as well?
Yeah, I do actually, because it's again we come back to how I like the challenge. I mean, in my studio, it's not really. I mean, there are challenges when it comes to like getting people to like to be in front of my camera and get the 2-year-old to kind of do be a little bit in front of the camera and stuff like that, but that's a whole different challenge. I mean, the light, the technical part is what I do every day, so that's not really a challenge. But when I come out to visit a big company, you get thrown into like funny light situations and funny colors of walls, and I don't know, people who hate being in front of the camera, and it's like it is more challenging, but it's also more fun. And I think that's when what I always come back to is how my lights are like my, like, what do you say in English, like a comfort blanket? What
yeah
have to feel safe. That's my studio flashes when I go out to shoot on locations, because I mean often it's a location where I haven't scouted, so I don't know how it will look. And as long as I have them, I know that I can do something that looks good and professional, because I know how to handle difficult situations with controlled light. So, yeah.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I did a job years ago where it was part of it was some architecture indoors in an old building, where at one end of the room there were tungsten lights, and at the other end of the room were fluorescent lights and something else.
Yeah.
And I just thought, no, this is going to look horrible. So I just said, no, you're going to need to just turn all the lights off. They're like, really? Are you sure? It's going to be quite dark in here. I said, no, don't worry about that. We can deal with that.
But don't you also think that it's kind of satisfying to like have a tricky situation and then you have to like figure it out, and what if I do this, what if I do this, and suddenly it all comes together, and it works, like it comes out like
Yeah.
nicely. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It is satisfying, absolutely, yeah. And working on location, there's so many more things to think about. You know, if you've just got a bit of a window that's visible, all of a sudden you've got another different color of light happening
Yeah.
to whatever the light might be in the room already, and thinking about balancing it all. It's it's an interesting challenge, because in the studio that isn't the case.
No.
Everything's just, you just make it all dark and you can do what you like.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are like the boss of everything.
What sort of, then, if you're working with both commercial clients and sort of public, the members of the public as well,
Yeah.
what sort of different skills do you find you need if you're working with one or the other?
Well, when it comes down to the portrait part of it, because I do like, architectural and products and stuff like that also, but the portrait photography, it's kind of, I mean, apart from the technical side of it, I think it's kind of the same, because I mean, portrait photography is very much how you approach someone and how you make them feel like secure and comfortable in front of the camera. And that's really no difference if there's someone from the public or if it's a commercial client. So I see a lot more similarities than differences, really.
One thing that can happen for photographers who perhaps especially aren't used to working with commercial clients is that they can sometimes be more demanding in different ways. So do you have any tips for photographers who are starting to get into this type of work as to how to manage that relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because there is a big difference, like I talked about before, that I mean, the ones who come to my portrait studio, they've seen what I've done, and that is what they want, because otherwise they would go to another photographer. As opposed to when I go to a business to shoot, it's very important to have the conversation before. So that you know exactly what it is that they want from you, so that you know exactly what type of image and the style and everything before you start shooting. A lot of the mistakes that I did in the beginning, it all came down to not having the conversation and not asking enough questions before I started. Because I mean, I think when you start to get into it, you don't want to be complicated, and you don't want to. You want it to go smooth and easy, and then maybe you don't question things as I do now. Because I mean, it could be, what you need to understand is that the one ordering the job is not a photographer. So he or she doesn't really know what's possible to do and not, and what will work and not. So that is kind of where you come in as a professional to offer that help, which sometimes need you to say, well, this is a good idea, but I don't think that this will give you the result that you want. What if we do like this instead? And so the tip would be to sit down and talk it all through before you start, and to question things if they need to be questioned.
Yeah, communication is so important. It really is.
Yeah.
And if you're not careful and you start shooting, and then because you haven't talked about it, they say, "Oh no, I don't want that. I want something else." And it can get very difficult. It can get very stressful if you haven't agreed beforehand precisely what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, these situations will appear anyhow, but it's a lot easier if you have it in writing, in or notes, and you can go back. But this is what we agreed on. But I can absolutely come back and I can reshoot so that you get this result. But then it's also easier to charge the extra amount for coming back and reshoot if you can point out that this is what we agreed on and this was what you said to me that you wanted. So it's less stressful and a smoother way to do it if you just have the meeting before.
Yeah, I think putting that time in at the beginning can
Yeah,
save you time later.
definitely.
Yeah, and it's the same with us. Like when you start out, I think it's if you can get a quite detailed contract. You don't want to have a book, but
No,
you want something that's got enough detail in. And similarly with the brief, I like to make sure there's enough detail there so it's not too vague.
no,
So
absolutely.
you know what they want and they know what they're going to get, and just helps to manage the situation a little
Yeah,
bit better. Yeah.
absolutely.
So, how do you cope with stress? Because let's face it, especially with the commercial work, there is pressure, there is stress. Things don't always go right, and all that. Do you have ways that you deal with that?
You mean that like the stress when things don't work out, or the stress that is too much to do,
Well, a little
or
bit
the
of
both?
both really, because I think you know you can end up as a photographer running from one job to another, and you can end up in a situation where you thought it was going to be like this, and then something changes and it's not, and all these things can cause stress. And if you're
Yeah,
stressed, it's harder to be creative. So I wonder, do you have ways that you manage your stress?
I think that when it comes to like the stress of being able to deliver and that kind of stress, which can be very hard to cope with, and especially in the beginning when you are not that experienced.
Mm,
I but when it comes to that, I always kind of land in the feeling that if I haven't like promised someone that I can do things that I can't, it's
hmm
fine. Because I everything that I put on my website and on my social media are stuff eh, that I've done and that I can do
mm,
again. So
yeah.
it's me, and then they can't like expect you to be able to do something else.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that, I mean, they shows you to do the job based on what you've done before. So you're gonna be able to make it. So that's like
hmm
a
mm.
comfort. I
Yeah. Yeah.
but when it comes to the stress of running from one thing to another, I don't know if I'm the person to give advice.
Oh,
I
okay.
Yeah, one thing you need to know about me is that I find it very much more fun to say yes to things than to say no to things, which
Okay.
basically means I end up saying yes a lot. And I'm also like the biggest time optimist that you will ever meet. So sometimes my days are like, you know, five different things that I also like need to prepare for, which makes like eating a thing that I do running from one place to another. So that
Okay.
is constantly something that I work on to like not take on too much things, and to also like put in my calendar time for preparing, and also like time for lunch and stuff like you
Mhm.
like that, the basic things you
Mhm.
need. So but
Yeah.
it's hard, and I think it's also in my situation, it's comes down to, I mean, all of a sudden, if you go back like 10 years, a lot of the things that I get offered to do these last like 5 years are things that I only dreamt of being
Mm.
able to do before. So, and that also, of course, you want to jump on the train if someone calls you up and say, "Hey, Therese, do you want to go to Beijing and do like workshops for 3 days?" And I'm like, "Of
Mm.
course, I want to do that." And then I
Yeah.
hang up, and I was like, "What did I just say yes to?"
Yeah.
And how am I going to pull this up? But for some reason, it always works out, and I make sure that I like prepare and that I deliver something that I'm proud of. So yeah, and I don't think that really helps. Also, maybe it's good. It would be good for me if things didn't work out, so I had to like take a step back and say that you need to do something different. But now I always, in some magical way, seems to work it out, and then I just keep on going. But I'm working on it. I am.
You're getting away with it at the moment, then,
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, there are times I think where when you're self-employed, you find it very hard to say no to something because you never know when you might have a slightly quieter period. So you think, well, I could squeeze in one more job, and you don't want to say no to it. But before you know it, you don't have time for yourself or your family or your friends. It can become sort of all-consuming if you don't put some barriers in place.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I must also mention that I'm very good at being lazy. I always also have time for like having a glass of wine with my girlfriends, and I mean, me and my daughter, we had a horse for 6 years, so that's basically also a good thing to have things that you cannot, like eating. I can like skip going to take care of the horse or take the dogs for a walk. That's something that I can't skip. So maybe my what's been good for me is putting things in my life that I can't take away, that I need to do, that is also good for like washing the brain. And I mean, to take the dogs for a walk in the woods, that's the best thing, because it's like you have to breathe, and you don't have to think about work stuff if you don't need to, which basically also means that most of the good ideas, they come from running in the woods or taking the dogs for a walk. So
the brain needs a bit of quiet sometimes, doesn't it, to really think these things through, and especially when you get to a stage where you want to evolve your business or evolve your work, you need that little bit of space for your brain to think it through.
I think so, because then it's almost like it can work on its own, and good ideas just pop up.
Yeah. Yeah, whereas it can get overworked at other times, and it just can't. Yeah, it can't do that. I mean, you know, so you've been in the photography industry for a while now. Would you say you still do it for the same reasons as you started?
Yeah, I would actually. I'm still. I mean, I remember when my dream was to be able to live off photography and not having to do anything else, because I was a store manager in a camera store. So it's always been like cameras and stuff like that. But it wasn't photography. So I still remember when that was my dream. So I'm still thankful that this is what I get to spend my time doing. And I still love it as much, but and maybe even more actually, because the more years you put into it, and the more you work towards how you want your business to evolve, to be able to, I've spent a lot of time thinking through what is it that I like to shoot the most, what is it that I like to do the most. And then I've tried actively to steer my business towards doing that. And I don't think that if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have like customers coming to me for creative style portraits, because that's something that you need to present and you need to market, because it's not a product that's been out there for forever. It's a new thing. So if you want to do it, you need to like work for it. And I've done that. So I would say that, yeah, the basic reason for doing portrait photography for me has always been the pleasure of making other people happy. That's like the core reason for why I do this. And that was the same thing when I started, when I could like show a new mom a picture of her baby or a picture of her and her baby, and she loved it and was happy and showed it to others. That was the reason, and that was what made me most happy. And that is the same thing today. I would say that,
Right.
I mean, being able to take your photography and make other people happy doing it, is still the best thing with the work I do today. And I think also that is, people say what when it comes down to like competitions and why it's fun to compete. And I mean, the main reason for competitions for me is to push myself and to learn new things and to stay creative and stay on my toes. But almost as big importance is that I can share the good news with the people that I've been shooting. My models are like the girl in the grocery store where I live, or the one who has her horse next to ours in the stable, or my friends or family or stuff like that. So it's the best thing when you have won something and you can like screenshot the diploma and you can send it to them and we can be like, yay, together. Because portrait photography is always a teamwork. I couldn't do it without them, and they couldn't do it without me, obviously. But it's something that we've done together, and I always celebrate every like good news with the team. And that's so basically now and then it's to make people happy. I think.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So would you say then that you've kind of created your own niche rather than looked for one to create a business for?
Yeah, I think so, because I've always, when it comes to my own projects and what I put out there, it's always been like what I want to shoot and what I like, which obviously has changed over time and still is changing, because I get bored on one thing and I want to try something new. But and also I look for inspiration in so many different areas. So depending on what I find, it evolves my style of photography or what I want to shoot. But it's basically the creative portraits have always been like coming from in here. So so yeah, I think so.
So when you talk about inspiration, is that something that comes through everyday life? Is it something that comes through other photographers or different art forms? What is it that gives you your ideas, your inspiration for a new project?
Well, I used to say that I think the best thing is to always have your photographic glasses on. I mean, I go through life and I look at everything as, this could be a good prop. This could be a nice location. Oh, I like to shoot that model. This character would be fun. So it could basically be, I mean, now the last 2-3 years, I've done a lot of like creative styling, like unconventional styling, where I used like different materials that wasn't really meant to build outfits out of. And that comes from, working in the hardware store, doing a lot of renovations. We are in the hardware store a lot, and where I can find like, oh, this foam that's supposed to be under your flooring, that might be good for some hat or things like that. So and then you could say like that the inspiration came from the hardware store. So it's it's basically that. I think I see everything in new possibilities for creative portraits, really.
Oh, that's good. That is, having that sort of open mind to it. I know my poor wife has got rather frustrated with me at times, because almost any new product that we ended up buying, she would see me looking at it and turning it around and thinking, that's going to disappear to the studio before we can use it, isn't it? How long is it going to be? I would like to use that this week.
Yeah, exactly the same thing. But I mean, that's what makes us like nerds.
Yeah.
And
oh, yeah.
Don't we like nerds, really?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And you also like creating new nerds as well, passing on your knowledge.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. So you might see like a bunch of Swedish photographers doing headpieces out of floor foam. Yeah.
I'll look forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about that before, but one of my passions has always been to like pass things forward and to help others. And I think that comes from when I entered as a professional photographer here in Sweden. The community, at least for the portrait photographers, were in a way not very sharing. I came from the commercial world where the store that I was managing was like in a chain of stores, and we had a lot of sharing and communication between managers so that we could I did this campaign and it worked really well. I send it along to the rest of you so you can use it and hopefully it would work for you as well. It was a lot of that. So when I came into this world, I thought that it's going to be the same here. So as a new photographer starting out, I was going to the meetings and the conventions, and I was like, oh, I'm going to learn a lot of new stuff because I can just ask and they will tell me.
Yeah.
As it turned out, it was a lot of well, I wouldn't want to share exactly how I did it because it's this is my style, and I was like, oh, okay. So I think it came down to everyone being very afraid of the competition, I think. So I think coming from that, I was very determined from the beginning to not be like that. So I've always been I'm happy to share everything I do, because if you think about it, I mean, you can teach someone everything you know when it comes down to the technical parts and even the posing and the communication and everything that can be useful for someone else. But their images will not look like yours anyway, because it's you still need to put your style into it. And that is somehow a little more difficult to learn someone. I mean, they can try to copy it, but I mean, it comes from in here. So it's going to be the same for the person taking what they've learned from you. They gonna add their style to it. So it's gonna be their type of images. And if we all share what we know, we're all gonna be just better photographers. And so I've been very active in the portrait community, the society here in Sweden. I've been on the board for, I don't know, 10, 12 years something, and worked very hard to create that kind of feeling in the whole community, so that we all can share and pay forward what others learned us to the ones coming. And now it's a whole different thing. Now I think we have a super. I don't say that it's me doing it, but I think in general it's I mean, new photographers coming in and the old ones are going out, and it was a big change for a couple of years. And now the community here in Sweden is very sharing, and we have a lot of friendly competition. I mean, we are a bunch of Swedish photographers who like to compete internationally, and it's so much fun because we share for each other very much, and we are just as happy for another Swede to win as we are for ourselves. And when we go to stuff, we bring our flags, and we are one big happy family. And I think that
I've seen you. Yes. And you normally have plenty to celebrate between you.
We have nowadays. We have, but I mean, we have come from times where Swedish photographers didn't get anything in any competition. And you look to the Norwegian photographers, and they were winning prizes, and we didn't get anything. And I think that's, I mean, when we started sharing and we started to grow and I mean, push each other to be better, that's when this happened. Because I mean, now when one Swedish photographer raises himself or herself, the others need to step it up, and then the others. I mean, it's So nowadays, the Swedish championship, oh my God, the competition.
I can imagine the standard must be quite something. But it shows that, I mean, community is so helpful for these things. I think sometimes people don't necessarily realize that by engaging in community, you don't lose, you gain. You're not risking losing your knowledge or something to someone else. It's you sharpen each other, and you can create better, and you get the encouragement, you get all these benefits from being in community with others. So I would definitely say to other photographers, if they're very much operating on their own, look for others to share with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. And I mean, also when I started to do like classes and workshops and I mean, teach in a more organized way, it's something that I have learned so much from. Because I mean, if you are going to teach someone else something, I'm not the read the instruction manual kind of girl.
No,
the creative part of the brain is too big. So I mean, from the beginning, a lot of my photography and my lighting was like, why do you do it? Well, I do it because it feels good. Because I know I like it. But I mean, you can't go to a class and teach the people you need to do this because it feels good. Then you actually need to know what happens and why it feels good. And you need to be able to explain it. So from teaching others, you also learn so much yourself. And you yourself become a better photographer. So it's like a win-win situation, really.
Oh, it certainly is. Yeah, I find for me that the teaching is such an important part of the learning process.
Absolutely.
I guess some people might think, well, surely you can only teach when you really know everything, and you think, well, if you think you know everything, you're in trouble.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, because that's never going to happen.
No. So you have to get to that point of thinking, I know enough to help people, but then through that interaction, you keep growing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You become a better teacher, and it enriches you because you see other people's ways of doing things and you think, oh, I wouldn't have done that, but actually that's quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I mean, yeah, that's really the thing. I'm from time to time, I don't consider myself like really good at retouching because as I said, I'm not like trained. So I've kind of learned what I need to learn to be able to do what I do, which of course, I mean, in a period of 30 years becomes a lot, but it's not like I would say that I'm really at the level where I can like teach people how to retouch in Photoshop. But what I can do is I can show how I do it, and then they can pick like whatever they like from that. And every time I do that, there's always someone saying, well, but if you do this, couldn't you instead like do this? And I was like, please show me. And then I learned a new thing. so that's exactly what you said. Like, I mean, if you're just open-minded enough to realize that there is always someone who knows how to do what you do better, you can pick up so many things and start course, keep growing.
Well, and the equipment changes, the software changes, and Photoshop as it is now is not the same as it was 10 years ago. And you think with the developments in lighting, the sort of high-speed synchronization that you can get these days easily, whereas before it wasn't possible, or you had to buy very specialist pieces of equipment to do just that type of shot. And now it's so much changes.
Yeah, absolutely. For the better. It all gets like more and more easy, or at least more and more accessible.
Yeah. People can dive in and have a go quite easily now. Yeah. It's very different from the days of it being expensive, and you had to have all this sort of expensive equipment and know how to work in a darkroom on your own.
Yeah.
And it's evolved enormously.
Yeah.
So I mean, with the things like with retouching, then how much do you like to keep that sort of manual and doing it yourself? Because I know quite a lot of people, especially in a commercial environment, are now using tools to speed things up. They can't use them in competition, obviously, certain things, but they use various things to speed up their workflow because they don't enjoy the retouching, so they just want it done quickly.
Yeah. I think for me, it's a little bit of both. I use the AI plugin tools to do the boring stuff, especially when it comes to like client work. I mean, if I can push a button and have someone like remove the spots and the dots and things like that, which is like not important to my creative process anyway, I don't
Mm.
see why I shouldn't. So I really welcome the software where it can help you to speed things up, because it's also like, as I said before, with the wars going on and the economic situation, it's been a tough business for photographers, I would say, the
Mm.
last 2 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, raising our prices, it it hasn't really been possible. So the
No.
only way you can stay in business and keep growing is to cut in the other end, which may
Yeah.
cut your costs, and more importantly, cut the time you put into finishing up something. So if I
Mm.
can go to a company, shoot 80 headshots, go home, and I can like cut the time, I mean, use like 1/3 of the time to retouch them, like as I did before, but charge the same, it will still be a better profit for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they are great tools, but then you need to realize that if you use them for everything, everything will look the same. And I think that's
Mm.
what we're gonna see going forward. That I mean, you can even now you can see like, oh, this is AI
Mm.
retouched from A to Z.
Yeah.
So, so I think it's important also to like keep the creative part of the retouch manual and your own,
Mm.
so that you can add your touch to the images, and they can like still look at an image and see that it's a Therese image.
Mm. Maybe that's going to become more of the premium end of the market in the future. Is that something that stands out as different because so many people are using these tools that things do start to look the same?
Yeah, I think so too.
Mm. So let's just imagine that all of a sudden you had a huge sum of money to spend on your photography business.
Wouldn't
Where would you, yeah, that would be great. I don't think any of us has ever had a huge sum of money to spend on our photography business. It's just collect bits as you go. But if that were the case, where would you spend your money now?
I think I would travel and meet other
Mm-hmm.
photographers. Yeah, that's definitely what I would do. I mean, imagine what you could gain if you could like go around the world and visit photographers which work you admire, and see how
Mm-hmm.
they work, and just have the conversation about stuff.
Mm.
I think that would be so, I mean, inspirational, and also I have so much to learn from other photographers. So yeah, and also maybe as I travel around the world, maybe also shoot in like different environments,
Mm.
because that's also something that I really enjoy. I mean, imagine if you could go to Costa Rica and then do creative portraits in the rainforest. Wouldn't that be
Mm.
like amazing?
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
money well spent.
Maybe not in the rainy season, but yeah.
No, maybe not, or maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it would be
yeah,
different. Yeah.
absolutely.
So if we bring it down to something a little bit smaller, do you have goals for the coming months? You know, other than a huge amount of money appearing from the sky.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
what sort of what sort of more realistic goals do you set for yourself?
As of now, I always like have like a goal for myself and for my own e- learning process.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I'm actually finishing up my second master panel.
Oh,
I within the Federation of European Photographers, FEP,
yeah,
you have like a qualification system where you can,
yeah.
like in different steps, you can do qualifications. And
Mm-hmm.
the highest one is a master, which I did one in actually during COVID. So I
Oh,
worked on it
okay.
for, I don't know, 2 years before the
Yeah.
judging could take place because I mean you fly in judges from different parts of Europe to do it, so it got hold off for 2 years. But I passed that one. But then I thought, wouldn't it be like cool to have two? So, and also since I mean, the last year I've done a lot more. I call it fashion portraits. I don't know if that even is a word, but I mean, I'm very much inspired by the fashion world, and I always have been. I mean, I've been like benching Project Runway and Top Model since I also I'm into like styling and doing all my own hair and makeup and most of the outfits myself. Of course, I lean to fashion shows and fashion photography for inspiration. So now I've been doing like more of these fashion portraits, and I thought it would be fun to do a panel of those. So I'm almost done. If you can ever be done, I don't know. Every time I look at it, I'm like, what if I just reshoot this one? Yeah. And then I book a model, and then I reshoot it, and then it looks nice. But then I kind of need to reshoot this one as well. So it's an ongoing process. But
it can be a never-ending thing if you're not careful.
Absolutely, yeah, it can be. But that's so that is actually going up in the end of June. So I would say that short time, that's the goal is to get that panel to pass, or at least to get it finished for evaluation. Fingers crossed, and see how it goes. But it's also fun to be working with the panel. It's so much different than working with single images. So it's a fun process to just to do it and to think about images supporting each other rather than being the best they can be on their own. It's another way of thinking, and I think it's fun.
It is. It's a different kind of a challenge. You're not just producing like a one-off advertising image just to grab attention for that. They have to work together. They have to be good in their own right. Obviously, you can't just stick anything together, but it has to be a cohesive set, and that is a challenge, especially when you're shooting it over months, because little things can change, and then of course you've got to consider the paper and the mounting afterwards and all these things as well. I mean, it's a lot to think about, isn't there?
Yeah, it is, but it's the challenge. So that's what I enjoy.
Yeah, and why not? Yeah. So how can people keep up to date and with your work, to follow along with this and to see if you pass your masters?
Yeah, well, what I'm really, the only thing that I'm really good at being present on is Instagram.
Okay. Yeah.
I know people say that you should be on TikTok, but I just find it really hard to find the time to be everywhere. So I decided to, I do Instagram, and then I try to do that as well as I can. So if you want to follow what I do, I think that's the place to be. And I always try to be a lot really generous with like behind the scenes shots and setup sketches and I mean, useful things that you can, as a photographer, you can use to try and do things yourself and to be useful for learning. So yeah, so I think that's, but also I have a website where everything is stuck together. All the workshops I do is on there, and so yeah, so these are the two places.
I think it's really useful for people to be able to see the steps behind an image, not just the finished image. And you can you can say, oh well, I just used one light and then but you think if you can see how it's done, it does make a difference to people. I think it's great that you can share that so freely.
Yeah, and also I think it comes down to, that's what I like to see when I go on Instagram, and that's what I enjoy. So that's obviously what I want to share with others.
And with your teaching, what have you got coming up with that?
Well, I do next week. I actually do an underwater photography workshop here in Sweden. I spent my COVID days shooting fine art portraits underwater because why shouldn't you? No, but
Okay.
it was convenient because the public pool was closed to the public, obviously, because it was COVID. So I could quite easily rent it and do it. So now that's turned into a workshop that I've done 3 times before. So this is the 4th time. So it's really fun. I invite photographers to come, and we have I think it's 3 big swimming pools, and we shoot like underwater, and also like we throw water, and we put the models, we build with flowers in water, and it's a nice one. So that's the first one coming up. But then I also come to London in September to do a fair. I think it's called Click Light, where I will do a masterclass and a speech. But the most fun thing is that the day before, I think it's a Sunday, I would do a full day workshop with fashion portraits and creative lighting. So that's going to be super fun because since I work with Nikon, I've been to London to do workshops and classes a lot, but only for 1 or 2 hours. So this is the first full day workshop that I will do in London. So I'm really looking forward to it.
It's a great opportunity for people to spend a lot more time with you to learn and create something together. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, underwater now. That's something I've never tried. That do you have to have special sort of equipment to go around the camera, or do you have a special underwater camera?
No, I actually have a housing. So
you have the housing.
Use my Nikon. Yeah. So it's a little tricky, but to figure it out with the lighting, because I wanted to take the same feeling that I had with the lighting in my studio and do it underwater, which turned out to be a lot harder than I anticipated it to be. So imagine the call when I called the Elinchrom and asked them, do you think that I could cover a flash in plastic and take it under the water? But that's actually basically what we do.
Yeah.
Because as it turned out, the only way to get it to where I wanted it to be was to get the source of light to be underneath the surface. So I have an assistant that sticks the light head under the surface.
Yeah, but try not to electrocute them at the same time.
Yeah. Absolutely. I couldn't do it if Elinchrom didn't have a light that is called ELB 500, which has the light head separate, and then you have the battery in the flash unit in a different box. Yeah. So that's not in the water. Which
that's good.
Feels better for the models and for me, because I'm also in the water. So.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. I should think you probably lose a lot of light, don't you, through all the sort of refraction as it sort of spreads it around.
Yeah.
And it's dense, compared to air. So, I guess you probably need a lot of power, don't you?
Yeah, the biggest problem was that if you're gonna send light through the surface of the water, the surface breaks the light into everywhere, and it just becomes flat and not pretty looking. So, I of course I understood that it would be that to some extent, but not to the extent that it really was. So, it was fun, but it was, if I had known going into this how much time and effort it would take to get it to where I wanted to be, I don't know. I don't think I would have done it, but now I'm happy I did. So.
Sometimes you just have to try something and see what happens, don't you, really?
And I mean, once you figured it out and got the results that you wanted, it was only the bigger joy, I would say, of course, since it's been a struggle.
Yeah. Well, Therese, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing your enthusiasm for photography. And it's great hearing these wacky ideas that you have and have a go at, and we look forward to seeing what's coming next. Keep an eye out to see what your creative mind comes up with next. So thank you very much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for listening. This is the Focused Professional Podcast.